Cognitive hygiene, how you manage your decision load, your boundaries, and the noise, is one of the most overlooked performance levers there is. And today, we get into it. There is a version of high performance that looks completely fine on the outside, yet falling apart on the inside. My guest, Awaiss Mirza, has spent 30 years working out exactly why that happens in boardrooms and sales floors. His work is about closing the gap between knowing and doing, and what gets in the way of that is almost never the business strategy, but personal health. Mental health, to be precise. I'm Ildiko Seely, your routine and performance strategist, and on Routine is Revenue, we look at how the health of your internal systems drives everything you produce externally and the responsibility you have for it. So Awaiss, you have delivered leadership programs in over 30 countries for many, many years. You held senior roles in your working life, and you were under a lot of commercial pressure. You also have said publicly, openly talked about that there have been periods in your life when internally things weren't working, even though everything looked absolutely fine on the outside. So what was actually going on?
There was quite a lot going on, and you're right. I mean, I've spent the last 3 decades working globally across sales, communication and leadership, delivering programs over 30 different countries and working with thousands of professionals. And I think sometimes when you are so engrossed and busy, you forget to make time for yourself. And that's what was really going on. I was keeping myself busy so I didn't have to deal with all of the issues that were going on internally. And you'd sometimes want them to go away. And you know this probably better than anyone else. When it comes to a physical problem that you might have, you break your leg, you don't turn up to work, people kind of go, that's okay. And you take time to heal. But when it's not physical, when it's a mental issue that you have, people can't see it, and you yourself then don't give yourself time to heal, and you try and push through it. And what I was doing was exactly that, keeping busy and just trying to push through. And it just got to the point where your body tells you that you can't continue this anymore. And I think that's where I got to in that particular instance.
Yes, I mean, I do share what you said, that I have spoken to many people over the years who think that mental health issues don't exist. And that's exactly how I'm trying to put it across. Like, hang on a minute, just because you can't see it, like a broken leg, as you said, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And then trying to explain it. But sometimes people get so, like, you know, the curtain just goes down, like, no, that's not happening, and that's it. So yeah, it's very hard to then talk about it and to deal with it. But let's just nail this. So how do we get to that point? What is cognitive hygiene that helps us manage this issue or this situation?
See, in my case, I didn't have a choice. And I say I didn't have a choice. And looking back, there were so many different signs. If I knew then what I know now, I think the outcome would probably be completely different. And in my life, there was a lot of things going on. And each one of those, and I use my analogy of a broken leg, was another broken limb. And I just ignored it. So I had a marriage breakdown, which I was 20 years in a relationship, and I just carried on. I had a change of job role, and I just carried on. I had, unfortunately, my mom passed away, and I just carried on. And there were things after things after things. They say the most stressful thing you can do in life, I think, is changing your job, a relationship breakdown, and a house move. I did all of those 3 within such a short period of time, and just carried on and threw myself more and more into work, thinking I just need to continue with this because it'll fix itself. And for me, it never did fix itself, and it got to the situation where those mental issues, those mental health issues, actually started turning into physical issues, and that's when it started really hitting me.
That's really interesting. You've just triggered a thought in me that when my mum passed away about 16 years ago, I just wanted to push through. I wanted to carry on going to work. I asked my manager not to tell anyone, although in a strange twist, she actually told everybody, but never told me that she did. So that was actually quite a situation when I went to work, and I was faced with condolences, and I wasn't ready for it emotionally. But I just wanted to push through, as you say. things happen and you just want to carry on. That's all I wanted to do, was just to carry on. And nobody really explained to me why I shouldn't. I was offered counseling from work, but
Yeah.
all the person was saying, no, you need to stay at home and grieve, but never explained why. So I said, oh, this is not for me. I put the phone down and carried on going to work. But then basically what we do, and certainly what you've just listed, like the major things, you had very poor boundaries to look after your mental health. But how does it degrade our business performance or work performance over time?
That's a really interesting question, because there is an absolute direct link between the two. And what we don't see is that what we see is we're trying to do, and in my personal circumstance, the best you can under the circumstances. But what you don't see is your performance does degrade. So let me rephrase that. Your performance does degrade,
Yeah.
and you don't see it. And all you can see, and one of the things when you're a professional, so I prided myself my whole life at being a professional. And when you're a professional, you say to yourself, I should be able to. And there's all these shoulds. I should do this, and I should do that, and I should be able to do this. And we put pressure on ourselves. What we don't see is we are not able to, because we're not cognitively working at the same level anymore. There are so many external pressures on us that something has to give. You cannot balance. And someone said to me years ago, they said, we have the phrase that says you are juggling your job.
Yes.
And you are juggling your life. When you're under so much pressure, it's like walking into a room full of juggling balls, and all you do is pick one up and throw it in the air and then let it drop. Pick another one up and throw it in the air and let it drop. You cannot mentally, physically actually juggle all of them. And what you're trying to do is touch each one as much as you can, just to try and keep them moving. And that's where it gets to the stage that it just becomes so difficult to manage. I hope that analogy actually helps, because that really helped me think about what I was doing. I was doing exactly that, walking into a room full of balls and just occasionally throwing one in the air.
That's such an interesting analogy indeed. It puts it right. And in today's world, we're increasingly talking about this more and more often, that especially us in business, entrepreneurs, or like high achievers, people in high flying job roles, we don't have downtime anymore, especially with the help of AI, because we are now outsourcing all the nitty-gritty tasks, and we are constantly non-stop operating at the high level, and we don't give our mind any rest. And that's really kind of showing itself, because we can't possibly operate at maximum all the time. So yeah, these cognitive boundaries certainly need to come into play, don't they?
They do, and I'm going to share with you if I may. And sometimes we're our own worst enemy, and this is a great example of us being our own worst enemy. I was working in a global organization trying to roll out a new sales training and development program that myself and my team had put together. And I set myself this target because I wanted to keep busy, because I wanted the program to be successful. I set myself a target of trying to roll this program out in 9 different cities, in 9 different time zones, in 9 weeks. So I literally went from time zone to time zone every week. I would work Monday to Friday. On Saturday, I would catch a flight to the next city. On Sunday, I would set up the training room, and on Monday morning, the whole thing would start again.
Oh, wow.
And I did that for 9 consecutive weeks. I started in Los Angeles. I finished in Sydney in Australia. And I can tell you now, by about week 6, I did not know which planet I was on. We are not designed to do that. And when we're actually working, so when I'm actually delivering training, people think that when trainers are there, they do a 9 to 5 and then they leave. So I was there at 6 o'clock in the morning, making sure everything's ready. I'm sure you're familiar with this. And then by the evening time, when all the delegates leave, you are getting preparation done for the next day. In addition to which, you then go and entertain all the delegates. So you go out for a meal, you go out and have a few drinks with people.
Then, of course, people come up with questions, so you still don't switch off. It's still all about work.
So you're doing all of the social aspect of it as well. You're finishing late at night. You're then up at the crack of dawn to do the next thing again. And because I didn't have weekends in between either, the body, and I realize this now, isn't designed to work like that. We have a 5-day working week for a reason. I personally think we should have a three-day working week,
or
but that's
no
something
more than
different,
4,
right?
indeed. I remember going from 5
But
days to 4, and it was revolutionary, even just the extra day. But so clearly
absolutely.
you were high performing at the time, or your aim was to high perform without shadow of a doubt. But high performing people, why do they seem especially resistant to acknowledging that cognitive overload? And why is it that people know what to do? Because I'm pretty sure you knew what to do, that you should be having a rest, yet they don't do it when it really matters.
So for me, I can only speak on my part. So from my perspective, yes, when you're performing at that level, so I put in global sales training programs in several FTSE 100 organizations. I was being headhunted to being brought into organizations to deliver this because that's what I did. When you set yourself that standard, you kind of say to yourself, I cannot let that standard drop. I cannot
Yes.
show any weakness. And I think this is the narrative you say to yourself. You see it as a weakness when you say, I should be able to continue to work 90-hour weeks and not show any kind of fatigue. I mean, one of the things I train on, funnily enough, is communication. One of the things I train on is how to present yourself to be at a level that's high performing. So I'm doing training for CEOs, for senior managers in organizations. And throughout this training, some of it you can fake. You can decide on what your body language is going to look like. You can decide on what your tone is going to sound like. And what I got very, very good at doing is faking the fact that I'm okay, everything's fantastic, everything's great. And what was really happening, and I'll share this with yourself, is when the course had finished, when all the delegates had gone, I was going back in the room and literally sitting in a corner and just not being able to function at all until the alarm went off in the morning, and then it's kind of wind the wheel up and you're out again. And it was all a performance.
You were absolutely and utterly exhausted every
Oh
day.
gosh, yes. Every single day.
Yeah, and when you are in it, it's kind of like a hamster wheel. You are in it and you just don't know. You can't see yourself from the outside, or even if you can, you just sort of, you know that you are in that hamster wheel. And how do you control that? But like this morning, the key message of my meditation practice was that the question was, what's your medicine? And instantly I answered, my medicine is my self-care.
Yeah.
I allow time in my day, however busy it is, for self-care. And that's what I talk about having good routines. And I kind of expect that's exactly what you worked out for yourself in the end, that you need to look after yourself in the first place in order to be able to carry on in any shape or form.
So again, this is going to sound probably a little bit silly, but I recognize that there is a whole world out there. And some of the smallest things made some of the biggest difference.
Go on, give us an
So
example.
we're in the middle of spring at the moment, and you know, one of the things I love is getting out in the garden in the morning, and I do this every morning now. It's one of my routines. I get out and especially if it's a nice day like today, the sun is out, I will have my coffee in the garden and listen to the bird song. It is just so. For 50 odd years, I didn't know birds existed because they weren't in my mindset. They weren't there as part of my routine. And now I'm going, I have missed so much. Going out for walks, little things, and just seeing nature. Again, beautiful time of the year. This is my best time of the year, by the way, spring, right? Everything is coming to life. Actually noticing those things, spending some time just seeing those little differences that is happening out there in nature pushes away all of those thoughts from work in your mind, pushes away all of those things that you bury yourself with thinking this is the important thing, when you need to give yourself that downtime. And giving yourself that downtime actually allows you to then perform at that level, but still manage it with your mental and physical health as well. I think that all three of them are intertwined and are interlinked, and you cannot ignore any of those. Yes, you need to look after your physical health. Yes, you need to look after your mental health. And then that allows you, and that's the structure that you put your performance on in total. And I like the overall, I can't remember the phrase now, but you have a structure where you show, the house, if you like, with the pillars of the
Yeah,
house.
I have the temple method, and the foundation is
That's it.
time, is to be aware of what do you do with your time. Where can you find, like you said, you sit outside with your coffee for 10 minutes. Where can you find the 10 minutes that instead of sitting indoors with your phone scrolling because you think that just takes your mind off everything, but then sit outside, and that often little things we do, whether it takes 30 seconds, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it appeals to a number of our health areas. So like sitting
You
outside, you
know,
are hearing, you are the physical health because you are out in fresh air, so you're filling your body with
yeah,
oxygen. Then your mental health, you're listening to birds, you are taking in the sunshine, you are simply taking a break and just concentrating on yourself. And that alone is so incredibly valuable. And yes, as you said, the temple method. So time is the foundation, and then all the health pillars build on top of it. And you fit in positive, good habits into those times that you were previously wasting.
that is so true. We call it doom scrolling on the phone. And personally, I think the phone and the way it's developed, there are some great things about technology, don't get me wrong, right? I'm not a technophobe. I use technology throughout my work, but I think phones have come to a situation now where people are using time and thinking they are having downtime, but all it is doing is giving you more and more cognitive overload. Your brain is working even harder, scrolling through those various different ads, taking on board various different things, switching off from that, taking that 5 minutes for a coffee sat outside is absolutely invaluable. And unless you've done it, you won't appreciate the benefit that it can give you.
You won't know. So how do you teach people to build better cognitive hygiene boundaries, especially when obviously you still work with people in high performing roles and high pressure environments? How do you teach them to reduce that noise and the sort of the decision volume that is genuinely relentless on us?
I think the key phrase that I tell people is you need to perform at a certain time. And a lot of the time, the people that I'm training, the people I'm working with, they're under a lot of pressure. In order to perform at your best, when the pressure is on, when it's the most difficult to do, that's the time that you really need to make sure that both your physical and your mental capability are at their best. So take, for example, one of the courses I deliver is on public speaking. And you see many people who are just about to go onto a stage. It could be a small stage, it could be a big stage. And you see them at the sidelines, and they've got their piece of paper in front of them. Their body language is all hunched up. They're tense, the shoulders are all rounded up, right? And I say to people, what you need to be doing at that point is putting this away. There's nothing that's going to help you at this stage. If you're not prepared now, it's a little bit too late, right? What you need to do is go and find some space, go and stretch, go and have some time. There's a technique I teach, and you probably know far better than I do, about using your peripheral vision. So standing in a room and trying to look at that side of the room and that side of the room at the same time. So you soften your focus and you're looking at both sides of the room at the same time. Now, your body isn't designed to do this. And this was taught to me by someone else. Now, when you do this and you soften your focus, you lose the focus in front of you, but because you are concentrating so much on either side of you, it clears your brain. It takes a lot of cognitive thought to do that. It works fantastically well. Combine that with some breathing exercises. Now, I support the 5-3 breathing, and I don't know if that's what it's called. That's what I call it. So
I love breathing exercises.
Yeah. 3 seconds to breathe in, 2 second pause, 5 seconds to breathe out. Yeah. Again, and using diaphragmatic breathing, not just shallow breathing. Because again, if you're going to get up there and you're going to speak in front of a group of people, one of the things you absolutely need to do is project your voice. And if you haven't got the air in your lungs to do that because you're tense, you're shallow breathing, it's like running on an empty battery.
Absolutely.
So those little techniques right at the very beginning, that's what really helps perform when it matters.
If you were listening to this thinking this is exactly where I get stuck, that is not accidental. You have the business strategies, but leaking energy and focus through weak personal health routines. This is the work I do privately with business owners who are ready to build their routines so their business can run without it costing them their health. Funny enough, I've not heard of this peripheral, bringing in your peripheral vision into the preparation. But as a trained speaker, I know that getting in state is super important. And I'm just going to get off my stool and show you a technique. This was actually something I used to do when I was doing teacher training. And I used to teach teenagers, and they had a different kettle of fish. So in the morning, I would literally go into the toilet with a floor-to-ceiling window and do the power pose. And just look in the mirror and say to myself, you can do this. And you can do this a few times. And oh my goodness, it empowers you beyond belief. That get in state kind of thing, you know, that you literally, as you said, put away the paper, start slowing your breathing, and get into a body state that you want to project.
Yeah.
That is super important. And that's kind of quite interesting how sort of we're weaving the breathing and body positions into cognitive hygiene.
Well, listen, power poses. I teach on power poses all the time. And I'm going to share with you a little story, if I may. So I always train people to adopt a high power pose just before they're going to go onto a stage or going to go to do a presentation or go do a leadership talk to their people. And I was reading up on this, and there's a reason why it makes you feel great, because you can actually fool your mind into thinking that you are feeling great. And when you do that, the mind actually releases all the endorphins, all the dopamine into your body, going, you must be feeling great. Have some, as I call it, free drugs, right? Have some free drugs.
Absolutely.
They're going to make you feel great, right? I remember being, where was I? I was in Kuala Lumpur. I was there delivering some training, and before I do any kind of training startup, I practice what I preach. I do all of this, and I normally go and find a quiet room somewhere, because not only am I going to adopt a positive pose, I'm going to also release some of the tension in my voice. So I'm going to be making some, yeah, woo kind of noises, yeah. So I decided at this particular occasion to go into the men's toilets. And I thought it was completely empty. And I use the phrase, I thought. I went into a cubicle. I shut myself in a cubicle. I stood there like this, and I went, yeah, woo, like this. And from next door, I heard a little voice saying, is everything okay?
Yeah, I'm just getting in state.
Yeah, I just went, yeah, it's been a while, is all I said, and kind of left it there.
But yeah, going back to the happy hormones, one of the simplest things I recommend my clients to do is smile, especially when you get up in the morning. So not even get up, when you wake up in the morning, the very first thing you could do to yourself as an absolute positive is smile. And then just wait for a moment, and you can physically feel that cocktail of happy hormones flooding your bloodstream. I love it. And I smile, and then I say a few words of gratitude, and I'm grateful to be alive, grateful to be breathing. Today I get to do X, Y, Z, whatever is the most important thing. And I think these sort of things are those sort of boundaries that you set for yourself to make sure that you ground yourself and you get yourself ready for the day, and don't let those heavy cognitive loads of the day take over you. From the very beginning, you can set yourself for that, can't you?
Well, funny you should say about grounding yourself. So we talked earlier on about footwear, didn't we? Right? And I'm going to let all the listeners at the moment into a secret. I'm actually in some really comfy slippers at the moment, rather than any shoes that go with this, because you're not seeing my feet. Now, as part of my training, I say to people, when you're standing there, one of the things you need to do is ground yourself. Now, the feet are, and you know this, the feet are really good at doing their job, which the majority of the time is they keep you upright, and they don't send any signals to your brain, because you just get cognitive overload if every time you've stood there, you get lots of feedback from your feet. So I say to people, take your consciousness to your feet. Feel the ground underneath you. Actually scrunch your toes in your shoes and try and almost, feel that underneath you, and feel as if you've got roots going from your feet into the ground. Literally root yourself. I've shown people, because I do a lot of video feedback for people as well, and I've shown people the difference in their whole body stance when they are properly rooting from when they're not rooting at all and they're just kind of skimming the surface. So I think sometimes just being aware of your body, from the feet all the way up to your head, is really, really important. Your smiling analogy is really good as well. And I link this back to a positive pose. People who are under stress and tension don't normally smile. So by smiling, you are saying to your mind, actually, no, it's okay. I'm not under stress. I'm not under tension. So all of the cortisone is going away from your body. Like I said, you can trick your body. And by doing so, you're getting all of that stuff that's going to help you feel good, because you look as if you're happy. You look as if you're relaxed. So sometimes I think both of those, physiological, mental, and all the chemicals in the body, are very, very much linked. In normal circumstances, it's how you feel is how your body will react to it. But if you can make your body react positively, I think you feel better from the result of that too.
So if you loop the whole conversation back to cognitive hygiene, and especially high performing people, so we get very busy with all of the volumes of the decision making in our business or in our high performance roles, and potentially people have sort of installed every bit of productivity system in their work. They've got all of the prioritization frameworks in place, but still they can end up having their week feeling like they are completely behind. And I think that's very much what you explained at the beginning, how you were at the time, because you had every system in place, you had everything timetabled. On paper, it was all working, but in reality, it really wasn't. So what were you missing? What are people missing when they are in that situation?
So I'm smiling because actually, you are so right. I knew everything that I needed to be doing. And on paper, it looked fantastic. But that didn't mean I was actually doing it. And that was the difference. Right behind you, got routine versus revenue. I did not have a routine.
Routine is revenue, because when you've got good health routines, then you will perform better at work, and that will show on your bottom line.
And what I did not have is the routine. So I knew what I should be doing. I knew how I should be reacting. I knew that I should be looking after myself, but I just wasn't doing it. And in retrospect, when I look back on it, I sometimes ask myself, why were you not doing it? And it reminds me of a great analogy. And the analogy is, when you're up to your neck in crocodiles, it's difficult to remember that the original objective is to drain the swamp, right? And that's how I felt. I felt up to my neck in crocodiles, and draining the swamp was almost secondary because I was just fighting these crocodiles. And that's some of the things I think we really, really need to do, is get that routine in place, get that structure in place, that you don't end up being where I ended up, which was a very, very dark place at the end of it all, which was in a psychiatric hospital. And, I had suicidal thoughts. I was just in such a dark place. And luckily, I got some fantastic help and I got away from that. One of the things I'll mention here at this point, I think, is some of those routines are so simple.
Yes,
and I'm going to share
absolutely.
one with you that I use. So one that I use all the time is, any meeting that you go to will undoubtedly start on the hour or on the half hour. And any meeting that you attend will either be a whole hour long or half an hour long. And my question is, why? Now, I think that meetings obey Boyle's law. Now, Boyle's law is a gas law for engineering, right? And the gas law says that a gas will fill to expand any container that you put it into.
Yes.
Right? So if you have a half-hour meeting, it will last half an hour. If you have an hour's meeting, it will last an hour. If you then cut that down to make it a 50-minute meeting instead of an hour meeting, I guarantee you will be able to do the same amount of work in the 50 minutes than you would have done in the full hour. If you had a 20-minute meeting, you'll get the same amount done in the 20 minutes that you would have done in the half hour. Now, most of my meetings now are either starting at 10 past the hour or at 22 the hour. And what that gives me is 10 minutes in between every single meeting I have to go and have a coffee, to go get outside, to get some fresh air, to relax and just focus on me. Now, this became really, really powerful during COVID. Now, everyone went through the same thing. During COVID, video conferencing and everything was in its infancy.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
It became the norm, didn't it?
It became the norm very quickly, and people were having literally 8-10 hours solid. And for people like me who work globally, I was working 12-14 hours sometimes in front of a screen without the time to stop and even go to the toilet, because your meetings are back to back to back to back to back. That is exhausting. So give yourself that time back. The other thing I would say is, does everything have to be a video call? So I reintroduced to my teams, I said, a video call without the camera, in the back of the good old days, we used to call that a telephone call.
Yes.
Right? We've got away from that now. So many of my meetings now, I say to the people, do we actually need to be seeing each other, or can we just have a discussion about it? And if we can have a discussion about it, you know what? I'm going to take that phone call. You'll have my 100% attention, or I'm going to be walking outside and taking some fresh air as we speak. So I'm combining two of those things together, and it works fantastically well.
Absolutely. What kind of issues do you most commonly find as the root of these cognitive hygiene problems and having lack of boundaries for cognitive hygiene?
In the main, they are issues that people have put upon themselves. I think in the main, people set themselves standards, people set themselves targets, people set themselves, performance levels that are either unrealistic or will just have a negative impact on their mental and physical health if they continue at that level. Now, don't get me wrong. There are occasions when you need to do a 90-hour week. You need to be putting those times in, but it's just not sustainable. If you're going to be putting a 90-hour week, the next week needs to have a bit less load in there.
Well, downtime or just go easier. Don't ever, absolutely never, ever begrudge having a bit more sleep or feeling like you're not with it and then take a little time out. But it definitely goes back to what you're saying as well, how you structure your day. And we're very much singing from the same hymn book, because this is exactly the same thing that I advise to my clients. If you have back-to-back calls, allow yourself at least 10 minutes for yourself. You might need to pop to the loo, you want to pop outside, make a cup of tea, but schedule the 10-minute in between. But also schedule 15 minutes to follow up. At the most recent one-to-one, I was telling my client that, if you do a 1-hour delivery, then you need half an hour to sum up that conversation and then email the client or send them whatever they need to receive from you, rather than have back-to-back conversations. And at the end of the day, feel like you've never achieved anything, because you then have all of that work piled up. And she was like, it was absolutely revolutionary for her to introduce those buffer times to follow up after each session.
I think scheduling is the phrase is absolutely right. You've got to manage your time. And in fact, you've got to manage yourself.
I was going to say, I'm going to have to disagree on that, because you can't manage time. You have to manage what you do with it, what you do yourself.
Absolutely. So in managing yourself, you need to know that you've got a blank diary, right? For example, I decide what goes in, I decide what goes out. Now, in the majority of cases, you can do that. It's setting your boundaries. It's setting the time that says, this is the time I'm going to take. Put time in there for lunch. So many people nowadays just go, I'm just going to work through lunch. Sleep hygiene, you mentioned that. There was a time, and this was the time when things weren't going so well. I probably was working about 3 or 4 hours sleep a night.
That's not sustainable.
Not sustainable. It's not sustainable.
Not at all.
So having that routine I mean, now, yes, could I sit down of an evening and watch a whole series of Netflix back to back, and get up at 4 in the morning thinking I need to get some sleep, or do I, at a reasonable time, going, you know what, that's still going to be there. Let me go and get some sleep. Let me relax. Let me put the phone away before I go to sleep. Let me open a book and read a few pages of a book. Let my mind rest and get up refreshed and ready to take on the day.
I think we've gone through. Normally, I ask my guests to give some ideas to the listeners of what sort of things they could introduce into their day and week. And obviously today we're talking about cognitive hygiene boundaries, but I think we've gone through so many of them, and some of them are micro actions, aren't they? So we just sort of
Oh, they
recap them
are.
in a way. Smile, breathe, take in fresh air, schedule little 5-minute breaks, schedule your lunch break. These are all adding those little boundaries that you keep your cognitive hygiene manageable. Is there anything else you would want to add to it that people could introduce into their day?
I think taking responsibility.
Okay.
And so, so there's two words to that. There's responsibility, as in the one word, and then there's the second one, which is response and the ability. Recognizing that you have the ability to choose your response. And when people recognize that they have the ability to choose their response, they can say no to a meeting. They can say, can we make that shorter, please? They can say, actually, that's over my lunchtime. Can we schedule that some other time? We normally say yes too easily and don't push back, even though for the other person, it could be any time. If someone says, oh, can we meet up at 12 o'clock? They might have the whole afternoon free. And by you saying yes and sacrificing your lunch, you could just say, can we move that to 1, please? And they say, yeah, that's absolutely fine. So recognizing that you have the ability to choose your response to anything that comes through. The number of execs that I work with, and this is a sign when someone's not doing all of this, is they will come in late to the meeting, and the first thing they'll say is, my apologies, the previous meeting ran over. And then they'll leave your meeting late, going, I need to get to another meeting, I'm late for that now. And they literally go from meeting to meeting to meeting, being late for every single one, having no time in between for themselves or to actually stop and prepare. And then this is when routine is revenue is absolutely right. You think of the effect it has on the overall effectiveness of that individual when they've done no preparation for the meeting because they were in a meeting prior to that. They've done no post-meeting evaluation of what I need to do with this. And all they're doing is going from one to the other. No wonder at the end of the day, they stop and go, I have been so busy, but I feel like I've achieved nothing.
So
So
basically talking
take that
about
control back.
Yeah, take that control back. But how do we do that? Especially as businesses structurally kind of incentivizing cognitive breakdown, because obviously these meetings are sort of required, or is it the individual who controls these, or is it management who controls?
Yeah, it's absolutely both. A lot of businesses will talk about mental health. A lot of businesses will set up webinars where they bring in an expert and they'll say, this is what you should be doing. And then as soon as that webinar finishes, the culture of the business doesn't help you actually do what they're trying to say. So my message out there to all the businesses is actually walk the walk and not just talk the talk. Now, some businesses are doing that and they're doing it very, very well. Now it comes down to the individual. The business is supporting you. They are letting you know that this is okay to do. You now need to give yourself that ability to set those boundaries. You now need to give yourself that ability to have that downtime in between meetings, to properly plan and prepare, and to have some time to go to the toilet and have a bite to eat. Those are basic necessities. But build that slowly. Don't try and do it all. It's like everything. You can't do everything in one go. Take one thing, make it habitual, then add something to it. Make it habitual, then add something to it. Every day, do something that's going to help you both mentally, physically, and from an efficiency and effectiveness point of view, be better than you were the day before.
Yeah.
And
Are you reading my training manual that I teach to
No,
my clients? But we are definitely singing out of the same hymn book. But you know what struck me in this last little bit that you said, that although some organizations are very good at this, but it's taking action. So when you learn something, unless you turn it into action, knowledge is nothing. Knowledge is all out there, but if you don't act upon it, then we're not going to improve. But isn't it a bit of a juxtaposition for people when they learn, what they learn is to take a break, but that's perceived as inaction?
It is, but that in many cases, that is their own perception. So I've been very fortunate. I've managed lots of people in my life, right? And I think this is when it comes to the management and the culture of the business. If someone said to me, one of my team members, sorry, I have my lunch between 12 and 1, I can't have a meeting then, I'd absolutely respect that.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, you need to. You need to encourage that. And you need to talk about things like that. They say, hang on, you've got 5 back-to-back meetings there. Why don't you just do you really need to be at that one? Why don't you take that time back for yourself? Why don't we get one of your colleagues to go into that and take that bit of downtime there? So this is where managers need to help people get those routines in place. I'll share with you how, you talk about micro-learning, something I've started doing fairly recently, which sounds silly, but it really helps me. So I'm going to put it out there and hopefully this helps someone else. There is a routine that everyone does in the day, and it takes about 2 minutes.
Brushing your teeth.
And that is brushing your teeth, absolutely, right? Yeah. So I've started doing this now, and I've been doing it for a few weeks. And it makes me laugh every time I do it. It makes my wife laugh every time I do it as well. But what I do now is I'm right-handed. I actually brush my teeth now with my left hand because I'm now using a different part of my brain to do that. So I'm actually creating my brain's actually being active. And the other thing I do is I stand on one leg while I'm doing it. And this is going to sound really daft.
You are not the first person recommending this on this podcast, right, indeed.
So by standing on one leg while I'm doing it, and I do 1 minute one leg, 1 minute the other leg, I'm actually improving my balance.
Yeah.
By using my other hand rather than this hand, I'm using different neurons in my brain to do this with. It makes me smile while I'm doing it. My wife sometimes comes and shoves me, so I'm like tottering around. It brings some humour into the whole thing as well. But that little bit, and this is what I mean about micro learnings. Now that I know that, if I choose not to do that going forward, that is a choice. That comes back to responsibility. That is, me going, I am choosing not to do that. But if I choose to continue doing that, it's better for me. So it's those little things that we have the choice to do and have the responsibility to be able to go, that's what I'm going to be doing for me going forwards.
So yeah, what a bit of a micro action to finish on, isn't it? 2 minutes in a day, something you do, whatever you do, you brush your teeth and just do something different. And I would like to also just sum up my own takeaway. It's something that I've never heard of before, is the responsibility, is that you've got the ability to choose your response. I mean, choice is yours anyway, but yeah, that was my key takeaway from this conversation. Awaiss, thank you so much for your wisdom. I truly hope that our listeners enjoyed our ramblings on how to set cognitive hygiene boundaries and how to stop ourselves from being overwhelmed and getting on that slippery slope to burnout. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I've loved having this conversation. And if someone can take away one little thing, whatever it happens to be, from this conversation and actually do something with it, change their behaviours, then you know what? It's been worthwhile having a conversation and putting this out there.
If this episode has shown you where weak health routines are costing you revenue, your next step is simple. Ask yourself this question. Is your business draining your energy faster than it grows? If the answer might be yes, I invite you to book a conversation via the link in the show notes. If this conversation made you think, please subscribe, leave a comment, and listen again. If you would like more information on the topic or my guest, all information is in the show notes. Remember, your business will only ever be as healthy as you. Together, let's build routines to bank results.